Hi, this is Maggie. I thought it would be fun to program a project that uses some of the concepts that we've covered in this chapter. I want to write a program that is a raccoon moving around inside a dark house. The user will be looking at the house from the outside through 4 windows, one for each room. The program should allow the user to turn the lights on in one room at a time. The raccoon will run from a lit room and will not enter a lit room. So there are a lot of components to this program. First, I will be drawing using clipping regions so that we can only see in the house through the windows. Second, I'll need 2 versions of the raccoon and room images, dark versions and light versions. Third, I'll need to process a click on a room as turning the lights on in that room and turning the lights off in another room if the lights are on in another room. And I will need to check if the raccoon is in that room. If he is, then I'll need to relocate him to another room. I'm going to keep the assets very simple for this because I could easily spend quite a lot of time looking for or creating assets that I can use and that look nice, and I'm not an artist and this video is about programming. So I'm going to warn you right now, this isn't going to be pretty, but it will work. At the National Gallery of Art, I've found some images of rooms. And what I've done is scaled them and then created 2 versions of each, the light version, which is the original art, and then a darker image. I've reduced the brightness of the image, and that will be the room with the lights off. And then at the Met, I've found this raccoon trade card image, and that's the best I can do for a raccoon. And I've removed the background and made a light and a dark version of the raccoon, and I've also scaled him down. So to start off very simply, and as a sort of a proof of concept, I'm going to just split one room image and my raccoon and process a click by toggling between a dark room and raccoon and a light room and raccoon. And when the lights come on, I'll move him to a new random location within the same room. This is just a start with a very simplified version of the program. You might approach this problem a different way, for example, by getting all of the art in place, which would involve clipping regions. We'll do that next. To program this, I'm going to start with template.py, which is the template I created for event-driven programs. If we run template.py, you can see it creates a square black window that responds to a close box click by quitting the program. What I want to do is load in 4 images to surfaces, the dark and light raccoon and the dark and light room. I've made a 640 by 480 version of one of the rooms, which I will use, which means I'm going to have to change the make window function to build a window with a different width and height. So I'll change this parameter size to 2 parameters, width and height. And I'll change the line of code where we're creating the window. I'll also change the constant in main, so I have 2 constants, width and height. And pass those to make window. We don't need a background surface, so I'll remove that. What I'm going to do now is pause the video, rename the file, add some comments, and load the images, and then I'll come back and show you that programming. Okay, and here are the images. And I compress the code by loading and converting on the same line. I'm also going to create a blit room and a blit raccoon. And those are the images I'll blit, because sometimes I'll be blitting the dark room and raccoon, and sometimes I'll be blitting the light room and raccoon. And I'm going to create a Boolean variable called dark, which will initially be true, and that is what I'll use to keep track of whether the lights are on or not. So at the end of the program, I'm going to blit first the parlor image, and then the raccoon before I flip. So I need a location for the raccoon. Let's begin by just blitting him to the upper left corner, 0, 0. And those are the blit versions of the images. Those will initially be the dark versions. Let's run the program now, just to make sure everything looks right. And it does. There's the raccoon in the upper left. Okay, we can move on. So next, we want to process a mouse click by toggling between the dark room and raccoon and the light room and raccoon, and we want to move the raccoon to a random location when the lights come on. Let's start by randomly locating the raccoon in the first place. I'll need to import the random library at the top of the file. And then I'll need some variables to store the raccoon's location. I'll call them raccoon X and raccoon Y. Now, if I'm going to randomly generate a location for the raccoon, it makes sense that he remains within the room. I don't want half the raccoon in the room and half of him off screen, because raccoons don't walk through walls, unless it's a spectral raccoon, and that's not part of the plan. So we will need to take the size of the raccoon image into account when generating those coordinates. So I'll randomly generate an X coordinate for the raccoon. Which is between 0 and the screen's width minus the raccoon's width. And I'll do the same for the Y coordinate using the heights of the two surface objects. Okay, and down here where I blit him, I'll change from blitting to 0, 0 to blitting to raccoon X, raccoon Y. Now, let's handle a click event. In my template program, I handle all sorts of events by doing nothing. I use the keyword pass, so nothing actually gets done. Let me reduce that to just the quit event and a mouse button up event. And in response to the mouse button up event, we want to toggle. So we need to check, and I'll use an if statement. And I'll check my Boolean variable dark. So if it's dark, then the click will have made it light. I'll change my blit raccoon to reference light raccoon. And I'll change my blit room to reference my light room. And I'll set dark to false. Also, if the light has come on, the raccoon is spooked and runs around a bit, so we need to randomly generate a new location for him. Now, in the else clause, that means it was light, and now the user has clicked to turn the lights off. So we'll change our blit raccoon to be the dark raccoon, and we'll change blit room to reference dark room, and we'll set dark to true. Let me throw a comment in here. Okay, and I noticed I spelled the literals for true and false with lowercase letters. Now let's run that and see how we did. Here's the dark room, and let's try to locate the raccoon. He's near the upper left, and we'll click. And the room is light, and the raccoon has moved more towards the middle. And we click again, and it's dark. So next up, we want to add more rooms, and we're going to show those by setting clipping areas.